the scene is becoming familiar. Outside a sprawling factory in the American Midwest, or perhaps a historic plant in Germany, hundreds of workers march, worried about their future. Their signs don't just demand fair wages, they scream about something far more existential: their future, our pensions, our promise, one might read. This isn't just about today's paycheck, it's about the ability to live with dignity after a lifetime of hard labor. You gave your sweat and loyalty, and in return, you got a steady, well-paying union job that could support a family and, crucially, fund a secure retirement through a robust pension plan. Automakers flush with profits from selling sedans and pickup trucks paid into massive pension funds. Those funds, managed on behalf of hundreds of thousands of workers, grew into titans of the financial world. An auto worker in Detroit or Stuttgart could reasonably expect to retire comfortably. In the United States alone, multi-employer pension plans in the auto sector cover over 780,000 workers. This system was built on a foundation of stability and high wages. The average auto worker traditionally earns about 22% more than their counterparts in the wider private sector. That wage premium wasn't just for show. It translated directly into larger contributions flowing into pension accounts, ensuring they remained healthy and solvent for retirees. The whole ecosystem depended on a continuous cycle. Cars were built, cars were sold, and a portion of the profits was funneled back to honor the promises made to the workforce. It was a cornerstone of the middle class, a pathway to a retirement free from the constant anxiety of financial ruin. But that cornerstone is now cracking under the weight of a silent seismic shift. The very industry that built this fortress of retirement security is being upended by a new wave of technology and global competition. The promises etched in pension agreements are becoming harder to keep, not because of some stock market crash, but because the very source of their funding is being systematically dismantled. The picket lines today are not just about contract negotiations. They are a desperate defense of a future that is quietly being unplugged. The threat arrives silently on massive cargo ships in the form of sleek, affordable electric vehicles. Chinese automakers, led by giants like BYD, are flooding the global market with EVs that are often 20 to 30% cheaper than their American or European counterparts. This isn't just healthy competition, it's a market disruption on a scale that threatens to hollow out Western manufacturing. By the first quarter of 2025, BYD was already outselling Tesla in Europe, a stark indicator of the changing tides. As consumers flock to these cheaper alternatives, the sales of domestically produced cars plummet, and the consequences for workers and their pensions are devastatingly direct. When a factory producing traditional cars scales back or shuts down, the first and most obvious casualty is jobs. For every unsold Ford, Volkswagen, or Stellantis, there's a ripple effect. The United States alone could face the loss of up to 75,000 auto jobs by 2030. If imported EVs continue their march, it gets worse. Building an electric vehicle requires roughly 30% fewer labor hours than a gas-powered car, so even when production shifts to EVs domestically, fewer workers are needed. This double whammy, fewer sales and fewer workers per car, means one thing for pensions: the flow of money is being choked off at the source. Pensions, as United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain bluntly put it, aren't funded by goodwill. They're built on paychecks from good jobs. The damage extends deep into the supply chain. A traditional American car is about 75% domestically sourced, supporting countless smaller companies making everything from engine parts to seat fabric. In contrast, a typical EV has only about 45% domestic content, with critical components like batteries overwhelmingly controlled by China. This means that for every EV that replaces a gasoline car, a larger chunk of the economic benefit is exported. The result is a slow, methodical erosion of the industrial base that feeds pension funds. This crisis disproportionately harms the most vulnerable. When a plant closes, they can't just fall back on a cushy 401k or stock portfolio. They face a grim choice: drain their savings or take their pension early, which can slash their lifetime benefits by as much as 30%. Faced with an onslaught of cheap imports, governments have reached for their favorite tool, the tariff. On the surface, it makes sense. If an imported car is artificially cheap, Slap a big tax on it to level the playing field. The United States recently imposed a staggering 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, while the European Union put a 45% levy in place. The idea is to make domestic cars more competitive, save local jobs, and by extension protect the pension funds that depend on them. It sounds like a strong, decisive action. It sounds like a plan. Unfortunately, it's a plan with a terrible track record, often functioning more like a paper shield against a tidal wave. The problem is that tariffs are a blunt instrument in a complex global economy. The immediate effect, as seen in Europe, wasn't a sudden resurgence of domestic manufacturing. Instead, consumer prices for all EVs went up. The tariffs made Chinese cars more expensive, but they also gave domestic automakers less incentive to keep their own prices down. The result? The green transition slows down because fewer people can afford an EV of any kind, and the underlying job losses continue. The tariffs didn't magically bring back factory jobs or refill pension coffers. They just made the problem more expensive for everyone, while doing little to address the core issue of competitiveness. Furthermore, global automakers are not simple national champions anymore. A company like Volkswagen has huge investments and sales in China, and a company like BYD is already planning to build factories within Europe to bypass tariffs altogether. Slapping a tax on a finished product does little to stop a company from simply moving its production inside the tariff wall, where it can continue to leverage its technological and supply chain advantages. The jobs may appear, but they may not be the high-wage, unionized jobs with gold-plated pensions that characterize the old auto industry. It's a classic case of whack-a-mole. You solve one problem only to have another pop up somewhere else. This isn't to say we should do nothing, it's simply an admission that tariffs alone are not the solution. They are a defensive crouch, not a forward-thinking strategy. They can buy a little time, but they don't fix the fundamental challenge: how to build a thriving domestic EV industry that can support the same level of retirement security as its predecessor. Simply making foreign products more expensive is like trying to patch a leaking dam with chewing gum. It might hold for a minute, but the pressure is still building, and the structural weaknesses remain unaddressed. If tariffs are a dead end, then what's the path forward? The answer lies in building a bridge to the future, not a wall around the past. A powerful and proven strategy is to tie government incentives for EVs to strong domestic content requirements. The United States Inflation Reduction Act is a step in this direction, but it can be extended. Imagine if EV subsidies were only available for cars with over 60% United States-made parts. Such a policy could create an estimated 150,000 new high-quality manufacturing jobs by 2030, providing the paychecks needed to fund pensions. But we also need to think at the community level. When a legacy auto plant closes, it devastates a town's tax base, which in turn hurts municipal services and public employee pensions. Creative solutions are emerging. In Lordstown, Ohio, the agreement for a new battery plant included a provision for the company to make direct contributions to municipal pension funds tied to specific hiring targets. This approach acknowledges that a company has a responsibility not just to its employees, but to the community that supports it. It's a way of ensuring that the profits from the new green economy are shared more broadly, reinforcing the local social fabric. Ultimately, protecting retirement security through this transition is not about choosing between clean cars and good jobs. That is a false choice. A strong domestic EV industry needs to be national, but not having a grip on its raw materials is a challenge. Perhaps the shift to electric vehicles is necessary, but abandoning the workers who built the last century of prosperity is not.